You are Locked On Wolverines POSTCAST, part of Locked On Sports Detroit on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And here we go. It's a live Locked On Wolverines postcast. I'm your host, Jake Rietmo. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Rietmo, formerly with 97.1 The Ticket, now with Locked On Sports Detroit, and fired up as always to be on the air following a Michigan football game. This one doesn't go the Wolverines' way. They fall to the University of Washington 27-17 on the road in a rematch of last year's national championship game that looked so different this time around. Welcome one, welcome all. As always, we thank you for making Locked On Sports Detroit your post-game destination for all things Michigan Wolverines postcasts, all things Detroit Tigers postcasts, all things Detroit Lions, and future postcasts of the Detroit Pistons. But man, tough day for Locked On Sports Detroit today. There is no doubt about it. Started with the kick in the teeth on the diamond between the Detroit Tigers and Cleveland Guardians, and finish with the gut punch on the road for the Michigan Wolverines against the University of Washington. But come one, come all. As always, we thank you for making Locked On Sports Detroit your post-game destination, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. Go ahead and do me a favor and subscribe to Locked On Sports Detroit as we break this one down. Today's show made possible by America's #1 sports book. That's right, FanDuel. Today's episode of the Locked On Wolverines postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And speaking of getting started, where we get started tonight, the costly turnovers late in the game in this one. And look, this was a grinded out type of game, I don't want to say heavyweight fight, but both teams exchanged their respective blows, and it was a close game down the stretch. And you could really summarize the way this game concluded was Michigan turning the ball over. 2 turnovers in their final 2 drives, aside from the 5-play drive that really was the last minute and 3 seconds of the game. But the last 2 times prior to that, you have an offense that's gained a little bit of momentum with Jack Tuttle coming into the starting lineup at the quarterback position, or coming into the lineup as the quarterback at the quarterback position, replacing Alex Orji, and really, I thought, playing relatively well. Now, again, he's not a Heisman Trophy candidate by any means, and many people saying, why wasn't he in earlier? And the injury history is what you point to there. He battled through a shoulder injury and an elbow injury, which is why he wasn't competing for the starting position at the beginning of this season with Alex Orji and Davis Warren. But provided a little bit of life for that offense going all the way back to when he came into this game. You get the touchdown in that second quarter to make it somewhat of a respectable score after falling behind 14-0. It's 14-7, a 7-play, 75-yard drive that culminated with the touchdown for Michigan to make it 14-7. And then you get the stop, a field goal before halftime, and then you block the Washington field goal. It's 14-10 at the halftime break. You think, all right, here we go, Michigan, a little bit of momentum going into the halftime break, into the locker room, a little bit of excitement on the Wolverines sidelines. You get the ball at half, and at the second half to start the third quarter, at the beginning of the second half, I should say, what a drive from Michigan. 11 plays, 75 yards, chewed up 6 minutes and 22 seconds of the clock, and culminated with the touchdown from Tuttle to Colston Loveland from 8 yards out, where he extended the play, made a play with his legs, got out of the pocket, and then found Loveland in the back of the end zone for the touchdown. And all of a sudden, you're feeling really, really good. 17-14 Michigan, but alas, after that, just nothing from the offense. A 3-and-out punt, a fumble, and an interception for your final 4 drives. And that is the difference in this game. There's just no other way to put it. Michigan stubbed their toe down the stretch and did not display the ability to close this game out. And meanwhile, you even got a play from your defense. You look at that interception that Michigan forced where it felt like the game was certainly hanging in the balance. And I wrote down what an impressive interception that Michigan came up with, that really it was Ernest Hausman that you felt like gave Michigan the momentum. They got the ball back, and that was the opportunity to go in for the kill, really. And Michigan just was unable to do so. So a lot more questions than answers after this one tonight. The costly turnovers is what you point to as why Michigan lost this game late. And listen, it's early October. It's October 5th. I don't think anyone is sitting here thinking Michigan was a college football playoff caliber team, especially with what's transpired so far this season. But tonight certainly felt like a punch in the gut as far as the postseason aspirations that Michigan might have. Now, that being said, it's the first Big Ten loss, and the Big Ten obviously so different this time around. You're not out of it with one loss, but there's a lot of things that now need to happen. I mean, with Oregon and Ohio State, one of those teams is going to have a loss after next weekend, and you start to do some scoreboard watching of how can Michigan play themselves back into at least to be a part of the conversation to get to the Big Ten title game. And they're going to need some help, certainly with some of the juggernauts that are now at the top of the Big Ten. But as you kind of think about the way this game went and how you would classify it, it's the costly turnovers. It's, again, the offense, showing signs of life and showing a little glimpse of what this team could be when they play complementary football. The defense forcing turnovers, the offense putting together sustained, impressive long drives, but not at a consistent enough level. And when you turn the ball over twice in the fourth quarter, especially in close games, you're just not going to have a lot of success. Some costly penalties as well. Michigan, not normally such a highly penalized team. And when you look at where Michigan might have gone wrong, some of those late penalties, even guys like Will Johnson, that late pass interference call on him that helped set up Washington's not game winning, but essentially the game sealing field goal that made it a 10-point game, because Washington outscores Michigan 13-0 in that fourth quarter. But 5 penalties for Michigan for 40 yards, and they were the costly variety. They always talk about not every penalty is created equally, but those were some costly penalties that the Michigan Wolverines committed tonight, especially late in that game, which is another reason why they come up short. Now, that being said, I do like the fourth and short. You go for it. That was kind of an odd occurrence when Michigan had the football. They're down by 7. It's fourth down. You go for it. First, you have the center moving the ball, and Greg Griffin playing center there for Michigan, filling in, and all kinds of chaos breaking out with the moving of the ball, and then a second snap that was halted and an injured player. Just lots of, I think Noah Eagle, who was on the call today, the son of Ian Eagle, with Todd Blackistone on the call, just called it mass chaos down there at field level. And that was an interesting instance of the game where it felt like, all right, let's get control of the chaos that's unfolding here. But all in all, disappointing night for the Michigan Wolverines, who fall to 4-2 on the season, 2-1 in the Big Ten. Washington moves to 4-2 and 2-1. I thought it was a little bit odd that Washington fans rushed the field. I know that they, just like Michigan, lost a lot of people from their national championship runner-up team, but it just felt very odd that in a conference game of a 4-2 team against or then 3-2, I guess, against a 4-1, albeit Michigan number 10 in the country coming in, it just felt weird to kind of rush the field. And I'm always pro rush the field, celebrate victory, have a good time. But I guess for Jed Fish, it being kind of his first signature win at the helm there for Washington, so perhaps that could be. But we're going to talk more about Jack Tuttle, all aboard the Tuttle shuttle. He was 10 of 18 for 98 yards, the 1 touchdown and the 1 interception. Better rushing attack from Donovan Edwards this evening, 14 carries for 95 yards and a score. And, of course, old reliable Colston Loveland, 6 receptions for 33 yards and a score. But all coming up in a shortcoming effort in which Michigan falls to the University of Washington, 27-17 27-17. We're going to take your comments. We're going to discuss a little bit more defensively what went wrong for Michigan and how they gave up that lead in the second half as we continue on with a live Locked On Wolverines postcast on your home for the Locked On Wolverines postcast right here on Locked On Sports Detroit. Don't go anywhere. Back in just a moment. This episode of the Locked On Wolverines postcast is brought to you by FanDuel. That's right. I know there's a lot of NFL fans out there. So listen up, NFL fans. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. That's right. It's more than just a sports book. You can get the live play-by-play. It's your one-stop shop for everything during the big game. And oh, by the way, it's America's #1 sports book as well. So get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. It all goes down at FanDuel.com. And because we love you and we care about you, again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Live odds always available at FanDuel.com. Don't forget, FanDuel is the official betting partner of Locked On Network. And with that promo code Locked On, you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bets at FanDuel.com. All right, I think everybody disappointed with the outcome in this one. There is no doubt about it. 27-17, the final. Michigan had a lead in the second half and went ahead after trailing at 14-10 at halftime, went ahead 17-14, albeit a very small lead early in the third quarter, but outscored 13-0 in that fourth quarter en route to the 27-17 defeat. It's the first conference loss for Michigan and second on the season. We go to the people for the first comment. Demetrius McNeil, I wonder the college football rankings are going to be coming out tomorrow. Alabama lost today as far as Michigan is concerned. There's so many questions after this game. 2 devastating turnovers. Let's go there because I want to talk a little bit more. Yes, first we'll point out Alabama lost, so obviously Texas will move to the #1 spot. There's so many things that are wide open about college football right now. It has not gone final yet, but Tennessee's struggling with Arkansas, and like I said, there's some major matchups in college football next weekend. At the top of that list, Ohio State and Oregon. But as it relates to the University of Michigan, I think we learned a lot tonight, and albeit a loss, this in a lot of ways, many people saw the writing on the wall with some of the growing pains following the national championship run last year, with all of the players that were drafted, with all of the turnover on the coaching staff, with all of the just change in general. There were going to be some of these growing pains. Now, and with Jack Tuttle being a 20th year senior, it's not like you found the future of the program, but I think you found somebody to at least take the reins and maybe steady the ship a little bit and somebody to build off of. Now, the late turnovers, obviously, you have to clean that up. I'm not anointing Jack Tuttle as the savior of this Michigan Wolverines 2024 team right now, but I am declaring, I think, the line of demarcation here being that Jack Tuttle is clearly the best option at the quarterback position for the University of Michigan. It's not Alex Orji running the football and not, offering the threat to the defense of the ability to pass the ball, playing old school football. And by old school, I mean before the forward pass was invented, for goodness sakes. And it's not Davis Warren, unfortunately, no matter how inspirational of a story it is seeing him get back to the playing field, and credit to him for all that he's overcome, but he just cannot play at a high enough level. And so for Michigan, it's Jack Tuttle. It's bouncing back first with the game against Illinois, who is a much improved Illinois team. We all know that. And then trying to figure out a way to just stack wins, because it's still, I don't want to say wide open in the Big Ten, but things can happen with the remaining schedule and with the expanded playoffs. Now, 2 losses certainly hurts you, but you're not out of it yet. You're going to need some help, but still a lot of things in front of this Michigan program. And I know the way the comments get, especially after a loss, there's going to be people in the comments section, get this guy off the air. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Did you even watch the game? No, I did watch the game. I've watched this Michigan team. You lost a lot on offense. The defense has not lived up to what their potential might be under Wink Martindale. And there's certainly shortcomings in this program. And you could point to, in a lot of ways, the inability to reload. There's almost like a rebuilding going on as opposed to a reload from last year's national championship team. And I've said this at length before. I'll say it again. It's kind of bizarre that Michigan in today's day and age with the landscape of college football couldn't find more ready to play fill-in pieces to replace all those players that were drafted, given the landscape with the transfer portal and with how fluid the movement is from players to different teams, especially at the highest level of college football. So Illinois is up next after the off week this coming Saturday. So take on Illinois on October 19th. That game's in Champaign. Then October 26th, back to play Michigan State before Oregon comes to town. Both Michigan State and Oregon will be at home at the Big House. Then to Bloomington, Indiana, against an undefeated Indiana team. Who saw that coming? Not me. Before Northwestern in Ann Arbor. And then the big one against Ohio State on November 30th in Columbus at the Shoe. So kind of I don't want to say mixed bag, but, some very, very tough games ahead, some very winnable games, Northwestern, and some challenging games as well with Indiana. And then obviously Oregon, Ohio State, just a gauntlet there for the Wolverines. And depending on what happens the rest of the way, there is a chance. And again, I have to be careful with the Michigan fan base, because you say one thing and the whole comment section goes out of control, and that's fine. I have the sturdy shoulders to be able to wear the kind of the ridiculing that comes with being the one that talks into the microphone after the game. But at the same time, Michigan's season's not over, but they're going to need some help from some of the other, the Big Ten to kind of cannibalize itself and beat up on one another, which is entirely possible. If Vanderbilt can beat Alabama, in the words of Kevin Garnett, anything's possible. But biggest takeaway from tonight's game, I think the Michigan rushing attack with 2 guys in Donovan Edwards. It was good to see him somewhat back, 14 carries for 95 yards. And collectively, he and Mullings, you think they could do it felt like Mullings could do a little bit more. He was kind of contained, 14 carries for 49 yards. But together, the two of them over 150 yards rushing. That's what Michigan wants to do. Tuttle carried the ball 5 times for 14 yards. And again, I'm not anointing Tuttle as the savior of this offense, but I think he's got to be the one you turn to lead this Michigan Wolverines offense moving forward. And, there's an entire off week to reset in a sense and perhaps go back to the drawing board in one sense of the way, both defensively and offensively. All right, one more segment. Don't go anywhere. Locked On Wolverines. We tie a Locked On Wolverines postcast. We tie a bow on this episode after a 27-17 loss on the road to Washington. That's next. Hey, this episode of the Locked On Wolverines postcast is brought to you by GameTime. That's right. What time is it? It's game time. That's because GameTime is the best ticketing app you need, and the only one you need for that matter, to all your live events. Saw a lot of Michigan fans on both my Instagram and Twitter that were at the game tonight, and what a spectacle to watch a college football game on the lake. You got the Cascade Mountain Range right there, and albeit quite a lengthy trip out to the West Coast to see Michigan lose against Washington in Seattle, but still worth it. And I would hope everyone got their tickets on GameTime, because GameTime has what you're looking for. The lowest price guaranteed, which is most important, because if you find a better deal, GameTime will credit you up to 110% the difference. And I got news for you. You're not going to find a better deal, because GameTime specializes in the lowest price and the last minute possible. As it gets closer and closer to game time, those tickets go down, down, down. My favorite feature, the all-in pricing. When you toggle this feature on the app, you got to make sure you turn it on, and it will show you the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout. That's right. You got to love that, because we've all had that experience. You think you get a great deal. Not so fast, my friends. Fee. No, with the all-in pricing feature, when you toggle that in the GameTime app, it shows you what you're going to pay at checkout. What a concept. More apps should try it. The other thing I love, absolutely, the high-res photo. You see exactly what the view is going to be like from your seat before you buy. Takes all the guesswork out of it. That's why you download the GameTime app, and you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. So download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCollege, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create the account. Redeem that code. It's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Locked On College. Locked On College. Locked On College for $20 off. And I ask you, what time is it? Game time. Final segment of the program. The Michigan Wolverines fall to the Washington Huskies, 27-17, 2 costly turnovers in the fourth quarter. Again, the story in this one, Michigan's offense just kind of fizzling out. And when I say kind of fizzling out, I mean coming to a screeching halt. 3-and-out punt, 3-and-out punt, turnover, your last 4 drives before Michigan found themselves down by 10 with only a minute and 3 seconds to go. And I guess they moved the ball a little bit, but just ran out of time in a 2-possession game. Not really much you're going to do there. So somewhat of a bummer all the way around, because when you watch that game, and a lot of college football games are this way, there's the momentum flows, and Donovan Edwards runs for that touchdown in the first half. You feel like the rushing game's coming back, and Jack Tuttle finds Colston Loveland on a touchdown pass where he escaped out of the pocket, made the play with his legs, kept his eyes downfield. Those are the glimpses that you see, and you just wonder, why aren't we seeing that more often at a consistent level? That's what the message is going to be for this Michigan team for the next 2 weeks before they're back in action, is establish that in a more consistent basis. And I mean, you got to get more out of Samaj Morgan. He had the 1 catch for 16 yards. And that was another play where if you were just to show that game film to somebody, you'd think, wow, Jack Tuttle and Samaj Morgan have that connection. They got to be really good. But it's just, it hasn't been that way. And I'm sorry, that was to Amorian Walker down the field for 22 yards. The Morgan one was a screen pass or a swing pass out of the backfield. And either way, though, you need to see more from Zero and from Walker, number 1, to be a consistent threat in the receiving game, because right now it's just Colston Loveland. Again, 6 receptions with the 1 touchdown for Loveland tonight. And Jack Tuttle is not the guy that has this electric arm strength, that has all the bells and whistles of some of these, Heisman chasing phenom quarterbacks at the national level, like Cam Ward or like Quinn Ewers. And so you got to be able to help him out. And this Michigan offense just did not do enough. A couple people saying hi at the end of the show. Shout out Daniel Berry, Sports Highlights. He's been with us on Locked On Tigers postcast, now the Locked On Wolverines postcast, and we appreciate that. It's pretty late on the East Coast, 11:30, so we too will call it a day after a long day on Locked On Sports Detroit. Tigers lose, Michigan loses. And last Saturday was, when that's what sports does. You have the highs, you have the lows, and today just somewhat of a and I say somewhat, but just a major low. So a bummer, but you know what? We will bounce back because that's what we do on Locked On Sports Detroit. So do me a favor, like today's video, share it, and continue to check out Locked On Wolverines with Isaiah Hull. What a tremendous job he does covering this team day in and day out, all parts of the Locked On Wolverines postcast. I am your postcast host, Jake Riepma. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake_Riepma. Michigan off next Saturday before taking on Illinois in Champaign. So another road game, which is also kind of crazy that this was Michigan's first road game and it's October 5th. But I guess that's just some friendly home cooking when you're the national champion team from the year before. You're defending that title. You get to always do it at home. Now, that being said, I'm looking forward to the next Locked On Wolverines postcast. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sports Detroit and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Michigan falls to the Washington Huskies, 27-17. The final. Michigan now 4-2 and 2-1 in the Big Ten. They're off next Saturday before heading to Illinois. Until then, make sure you join us for all of our Locked On Sports Detroit postcasts. The next one will be following the Monday evening game, the Detroit Tigers in a 1-0 hole against the Cleveland Guardians. Tarek Skubal taking the ball for the Tigers on Monday. Hopefully we have an exciting and victory-filled Locked On Tigers postcast. Until then, have a wonderful night. We'll see you next time on Locked On Sports Detroit.